Hello, everyone. I'm Andy, and welcome to Stackin It Up, a series of tech transformation talks on the people, technology, and stories behind real-world digital transformation. Today, I'm joined by Chris Bogan. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Andy. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Beautiful day here in Texas.
It definitely is. Hey, Chris, could you tell the audience a little bit about what you do here at Mark III?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the Vice President of Sales here for Mark III. So do a lot of work with our team around like the machine learning, the AI, ML, DL space. Also doing quite a bit on the DevOps side. Lots and lots of focus these days on containerization and automation. So really just kind of helping to enable the greater Mark III team to go out and help our customers and help us kind of get through the times that we're in.
Awesome. Today's topic is all around digital cities and digital counties, a topic that I know is very near and dear to your heart, Chris.
Yeah.
Can you start by telling the audience a little bit about what is a digital city and what's a digital county?
Absolutely. So the whole idea behind a digital city or a digital county is really being able to go out and kind of provide a lot of those additional services that constituents and citizens are looking for, but being able to do it in kind of a more consumable way. So we all kind of remember the idea of, oh, I've got to go get a driver's license. I've got to be there in person. I've got to be able to actually go in and fill out some form for this or for that or for whatever, being able to set up water service, all those sorts of things. And really the idea of being a digital city is being able to still continue to provide those services because they are critical to the citizen experience, but being able to make it so that it's a little bit easier to consume. So how can you better manage your water consumption, right? Like we're all being more thoughtful about the economic and environmental impact that we're leaving. So really, how do you enable cities to be able to do that, better manage a lot of those resources, and then also allowing you to be able to actually take some of those services, like as an example, if a water person is going out to perform some sort of a service, could they also go do something else that maybe someone else needed? Or can they also be able to provide feedback on maybe roadway conditions, or maybe they pass something, or they pass an esplanade or something like that that actually needs some additional service from the city. Really being able to kind of interact with their coworkers to be able to create a better experience for the citizen overall.
What are some key trends out there that are accelerating the need for cities and counties to transform and to become digital cities and digital counties?
Oh, absolutely. So really a lot of the focus around kind of the environmental impact of cities and of the citizens that are there. So we're seeing a huge uptick in the number of smart meters from a watering perspective, right? You get into areas that are prone to droughts. How do you manage, the water supply in those sorts of situations? The solid waste and recycling programs are particularly attractive now too. So how do you kind of reduce the impact of a large area and a large number of people living, and be able to kind of manage some of those solid waste aspects, making sure that as you're processing those wastes, that what goes back into the environment is at least to specifications, or maybe even ends up being a little bit cleaner than it needs to be. A lot of the focus around how do you kind of not have as large of an impact from an electrical consumption perspective. So being able to look at smart power meters in some of those areas that are, kind of quasi-regulated or maybe deregulated, or maybe a mixture of both of those from kind of an electrical perspective. So really being able to just kind of manage the interaction of citizens with each other day to day, as well as being able to kind of provide an attractive area for new business to be able to come in. So how do you become attractive to some of these newer companies? How do you, convince a large, maybe multinational or multi-state organization to actually invest in your city or your county, and provide jobs for those citizens, right? So it's kind of, how do you create one of those virtual cycles that allows that growth to kind of continue, but also minimizes that impact and really kind of uses the environment to the benefit of the citizens and the folks that are actually there consuming those city services.
You've worked extensively with cities and counties, both as a client leader and now as a VP of sales here at Mark III. So you have a lot of firsthand knowledge at partnering with a lot of these organizations. Can you give us an example of a digital city that you work with, or digital cities that you've worked with and their transformation?
Absolutely. So it kind of spans the gamut, as you would probably imagine, from different locations. But one in particular that's especially exciting is one that we actually got to help the police department actually be able to have more officers out in the community on a regular basis. So one of the challenges that they had kind of in that transformation was, how do you go from an environment where you have to be in the police station for a lot of your day-to-day duties and actually allow them to be able to complete those duties while they're actually out in the community? So being able to schedule officers, being able to actually identify where officers are so that you're kind of evenly spread out around the community. How do you kind of increase the amount of community outreach that's there, right? So if you're trying to go be with young people that may not have positive role models, how do you kind of enable those officers to be able to go spend more time there? And really from that perspective, it was all around, how do you kind of virtualize a lot of that work that has to be done back at the police station and allow those folks to actually be out there? So what we did was we came up with an amazing VDI solution that our engineers did just a fantastic job with. And that's really being able to take all of those applications, virtualizing them in a secure form factor so that it can actually be consumed in any format that they want. So these officers can be on tablets, they could be on PCs, they can even, in many cases, for some of those applications, even be on their phones. So the idea is really kind of untethering them from the actual police station and allowing them to be able to access that data kind of wherever it is that they are. So that's kind of the whole idea of taking the past sense of being, hey, I have to be in the police station, to kind of the present situation, which is, hey, that police station is now in my pocket, in my hand, in my vehicle. And then really being able to look out towards the future and being able to say, hey, how can I now tie a lot of those data points in together with other communities that are around us, right? So beyond that city, being able to expand that to the county, being able to expand that to state law enforcement, and then hopefully at some point being able to do it even beyond the state. So from that perspective, that one was particularly interesting. We had another great situation with a different city, and one of their big pieces was really around saying, hey, we want to be able to tie different departments more closely together. And that was basically being able to combine sewage and wastewater treatment along with folks that are actually doing road repair and road surveys. And that whole concept was being able to say, hey, if we have a wastewater issue where there's a clog somewhere or something like that, can we also, while we go do that, send the appropriate road crew to make any of the other changes that need to actually come and happen at that same point in time, right? So rather than sending two trips that cost the city, in theory, twice as much, being able to actually go get more of that work done in that one single trip. And again, that's one of those where it's not necessarily hard, but you look at that in the past, and each individual department is focused on only their one siloed responsibility, versus now being able to say, hey, between departments, we can help kind of foster that level of communication where they can be more effective in their day-to-day jobs, but they can also cross-train and actually provide better services to the citizens that are out there. So it leads to better job satisfaction for the people that are actually doing the work, because they get cross-trained, they get to meet other people in other departments. But it's also a better experience for the citizen, right? So the roads are closed one time, not two or three or four times, right? So again, being able to kind of be visible, but also not be making as large of an impact in terms of time for the citizens or in terms of cost for the government organization as a whole.
Awesome. So those are a really good couple of examples on really how you help clients with sort of baseline technology and make sure that the fundamentals are in place
Yeah.
for them. What are some other unique ways you think that Mark III has helped and can help with the digital city transformation?
Oh, absolutely. So this is part of the fun of being part of Mark III systems. So we've also seen folks come in who just have problems with, basic virtualization challenges, right? So, hey, I'm trying to get this application to talk to this other application, and for whatever reason, it's not working, and we're not sure why. That's one of those where Mark III particularly excels, because it may end up being an issue with a virtualization technology just in the configuration side. It could end up being something that's network related, and we've got some of the sharpest folks from that perspective around. It could be something that's storage related. It could be any number of these different things. And really the idea there is being able to say, hey, we'll help you. We don't know what the problem is, just like you don't. But our team of engineers who were fingers on the keyboard engineers that were running their own shops basically can go in and actually help them troubleshoot, find what those issues are, and then help them address those issues, and then also kind of set them up for success in the future, right? So we've got a problem. Okay, we've now fixed the problem. Okay, so now how do we help integrate that into that greater, that greater good for the citizens that are there, for those county citizens as well. So definitely very, very exciting from that perspective. So again, anything from networking and some of those newer technologies all the way down to to even just being able to get something as simple as email on your phone. It may seem simple, but if someone can't do it, then that's a really large impact on them and on their ability to perform their jobs. So yeah, anything kind of across that board, we enjoy those challenges, and it's particularly fulfilling to be part of an organization that does that. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Awesome. And do you have any advice for cities and counties looking to accelerate transformation?
Oh, absolutely. So anyone looking to kind of either get started with transformation, I think most folks are kind of trying to do something. I think the biggest challenge is it gets really, really intimidating when you start to say, hey, I want to go build this big grand vision and I want to be at this point in the future. But then you look at what you have and you go, oh my gosh, I don't know how we're going to make our budget stretch to go do something like that. I think that's one of those where engaging Mark III is particularly helpful. So we can help kind of make those incremental steps as you go along the way. So being able to kind of set out where that goal is, but being able to say, here's where we are today, here's how we're going to progress forward to kind of transform and be more digitally focused. So how do we, do better managing the water and natural resources that we have? How do we make sure that our officers have what they need from a police, public safety, first responder perspective? But then you can take a lot of those technologies, because you look at kind of the remote workers that we're looking at today, like who are, kind of the pinnacle of remote workers? It's these first responders. It's the police officers. It's the EMTs. It's all of those folks that are out there on the front lines responding. So if you can build a virtualized environment that allows you to be able to do VDI and some of these other wonderful initiatives that allow them to get access to data that they need when they need it, then you can turn that to some of your office workers. Then you can start enabling some of those other remote workers that may not be in a desktop-like environment, but can still benefit from leveraging that technology. And then that helps you make kind of those incremental steps to where you kind of hit that end goal. And it's a journey, right? None of this is going to happen overnight, but it's that incremental progress that, number one, is really fulfilling for all of the folks that are involved. But the citizens start to realize, like, even those small tweaks that can be made, you'll start to see an uptick in the kind of acceptance rate of citizens being able to engage more with the government. And then you start to see that satisfaction rate climb, and it climbs incrementally. And then you start to kind of hit that hockey stick to where it really kind of takes on a life of its own. And then suddenly you get that much closer to those goals that you have. And then you say, well, what's our next goal? And what's kind of the next future that comes beyond that? So really just kind of engaging early. Don't be afraid to come up with a wish list of things that you want to have. Temper that wish list knowing that you're not going to have it tomorrow morning, as an example. But definitely have those as kind of those goals, and you'll probably be surprised at how close you can get to them. So it's it's a really exciting journey. The customers we've been fortunate to work with are moving along that journey, and we're learning a lot from each of these engagements. So definitely leverage us. We'll pass a lot of those learnings along, and we'll learn together as well. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. And one last question for you. You sort of referred to this in your intro, and I know it's a big focus for us around AI and digital transformation. As you look toward the future, can you talk about some of the examples? I know many are still earlier in their journey, around the digital cities and digital county space, but can you talk about some examples of where you might see folks going just based on who we're talking to out in the field today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first responders are obviously kind of forefront in everyone's mind right now, and I think a big part there is how do you enable those first responders to have secure but unfettered secure access to the data that they need, right? So if you have a hotspot as an example of where people where there are more accidents, where there are maybe dangerous intersections, or maybe intersections that just happen to have a higher frequency of incidents than others. That's where we see a lot of it, is a lot of people kind of saying, hey, we have these data points, but we don't quite know how to bring them all together. And we're starting to see more and more people say, hey, we've got to break these individual silos down. And once you get that and you have those data points, then how do we put them in a data lake, or in a whatever kind of that term is that you want to use for that data aggregation pool? But how do we then take that into a data aggregation pool and then actually get meaningful insights out of it? I think a lot of people have been talking about that, but very few have really been able to make incremental progress there. I think some of that maybe they just get overwhelmed by the sheer amount of data that's there and say, oh my gosh, this is really hard, let's kind of set it aside. Versus how a lot of our engineers have kind of approached that, as being able to say, hey, let's pick one or two or three challenges that we have. Let's find the data points that relate to those challenges and let's address them. And then let's go find two or three more and let's address those. And then suddenly it becomes one of those kind of, again, self-fulfilling concepts of, hey, here's the challenge that we have. Here's the repository. What other data points do we need? And then really, how do we go take that to the users that can do the most with it? So really around first responders, and then really around being able to mine the data that's already there, right? Like if you know you've got a challenging intersection, maybe you go look at the shrubbery choices that were there, right? So talk to the public works folks. Maybe you find out it's one that just has poor drainage, so there's lots more water at that particular intersection. All of these things, again, the data is there. It's how do you kind of break down the department that deals with sewer from the department that deals with with roads and traffic lights and traffic patterns and things like that. And then the landscaping group that may do city parks and some of those other things. So it's really just kind of how do you combine a lot of those kind of data silos and those individual folks, because the people that are working for these digital cities, they really, almost all of them are citizens themselves. They want to have pride in where they live, and we all kind of see that. And it's really just how do you kind of empower those folks with the data they need, because the engagement there becomes that much higher when they've got those data points and they can kind of help out. So yeah, I think that's kind of the big piece.
All right, Chris, thanks for joining us today. Before we sign off, can you tell the audience how they can reach you directly?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll have my email address up there, but it's chris.bogan@mark3sys.com. And we're definitely here at the office as well. So give us a call there and we'll have that number up there too. But it's for those of you in the Houston area, it's 713-664-9850.
All right. To see more videos in the Stackin It Up series, please subscribe to the Mark III channel on YouTube. Thanks for joining us and see you next time.